One of the icebreakers that I often use in negotiation classes that I've taught at Harvard and Georgetown law schools over the years is share with the class someone you think of as a great negotiator and why. So through the years, one of the people I mention is Ambassador Charlene Barshefsky. Now, unless you are a political geek or an international trade nerd, and I'm guessing most of you watching this are not, then you probably don't know who this is. But if you stick around for this second in my new series on Bob's Great Negotiators, I'm going to tell you why Ambassador Barshefsky deserves to be in the pantheon of all-time greats and what you can learn from her approach. Okay, so let's get started. First, a few words on who is Charlene Barshefsky. Well, she has had this long and incredibly storied career. But from 1997 through 2001, she served as a member of President Bill Clinton's cabinet in the role as the United States Trade Representative, or USTR. So the USTR is basically the chief trade negotiator for the United States. So that means that she was the chief trade negotiator for the largest economy in the world on all matters related to international trade. So as you can imagine, Ambassador Barshefsky lived and breathed negotiation. I was super fortunate that I got to meet her in 2001 when she received Harvard Law School's Great Negotiator Award. At the time, I was a very junior faculty member, so I had the task of being her Sherpa, meaning that I spent the day bringing her from meeting to meeting, meeting with important senior faculty. But that ended up being great for me because I got to walk her around all day and I got to learn a little bit about what made her a great negotiator. Many years later, I had the chance to actually invite her to one of my own advanced negotiation classes at Harvard Law School. Now, while she has a huge host of great attributes that make her an excellent negotiator, I'm going to focus on just 4 of them. Okay, so let's start with attribute number 1. Ambassador Barshefsky knows how to set goals. This may not sound stunning, but in fact, many negotiators go into the negotiation without having thought very hard about what success or what a good outcome looks like. And the problem with that, right, is if you don't know what your specific goals are, it's really hard to achieve them, no matter how many tools you have at your disposal. So you could imagine, like on my phone, I have Google Maps installed, and that's a really great tool. On the other hand, if I do not know what the destination is, if I don't know where I'm going, it's not very useful. And so one of the things about Ambassador Barshefsky is that she sets ambitious negotiation goals, but also ones that are pragmatic. She also thinks about what is needed to get there. That is to say, who are the necessary parties who need to be on board for this to be yesable. I think one of the key things she talks about is in preparation, you need to think about where do you want to go, what is a good outcome, and then who is required to get you there. So this leads to the second really great attribute she has as a negotiator, which is that she knows how to build coalitions. In fact, she is a coalition builder par excellence. So in negotiation, right, once you have a goal in mind, sometimes it could feel really far off and daunting. But in order to succeed, you need to break this down step by step. And that means a few things. It means first, finding the right coalitional players. And secondly, figuring out who do I approach first in order to get the right people on board. So I'll give you an example. In the late 1990s, she was really responsible for having some very successful trade negotiations with China and also for negotiating China's accession into the WTO, or World Trade Organization. Among the many challenges the United States had with China at that time was theft of intellectual property. And another challenge we had is that it was very hard to actually negotiate any concessions from the Chinese because it was hard for the U.S. to offer any credible sanctions, any credible threats to China. And China knew this. Well, why was that hard? Well, it's because so many industries in the United States knew that if we sanctioned China, that it would actually hurt them. And so the Clinton White House was opposed to it. Congress people were opposed to it. Industry was opposed to it. But what that practically speaking means is it leaves the U.S. trade representative with very little clout in negotiations with the Chinese. So what she realized is that she would need to build a strategic coalition on the U.S. side for limited and targeted sanctions that would actually work with the Chinese. And so the question is, how do you build that? Did he go to the Clinton White House and say, this is what we need? That's not what she did. She did very sophisticated stakeholder mapping and identified a number of key industries that would impose low costs on the US economy and higher costs on the Chinese economy. And then she went to some of the CEOs of these companies and made the case to them why they should suffer a modest consequence in advancing a broader US goal. And she was able to appeal to their patriotism and long-term interest to get them on board. Then she went to the congressmen in whose districts these industries were. And of course, the initial response is like, absolutely not. Are you crazy?
I won't get reelected.
But she says,
oh, no. But I already have these CEOs on board. They're in favor of this.
What?
Yeah, I've talked to them. They're in favor of this.
Oh, okay then.
Then she gets those people on board, right? And then she goes to the White House. And the White House is like,
are you crazy? I can't sign up for this. I'm going to lose all these Congress people.
Oh, no. They're on board.
What?
They're on board. See?
And then the White House says, okay. Now she can go into those negotiations with China and an actual credible threat of sanctions, which improves her negotiation hand in those negotiations. So building coalitions, such a skill that she had. And so this leads to the third great attribute she has, which is preparation. One of the things that sets apart okay or mediocre negotiators from great ones is putting in the time and energy to be super prepared. Now, this is a theme that cuts across great negotiators, but also really across anyone who is at the top of their game in their profession, right? Whether it's like professional ice skaters or doctors. Preparation is Barshefsky. I want to distinguish that from being scripted. She's not someone who has scripts, but she knows the terrain. She knows the traps. She knows the ravines, the rivers, and the ins and the outs. And what that enables her to do in the negotiation is be incredibly nimble. Last characteristic that makes her a great negotiation is her persistence. You know, sometimes in the heat of a negotiation, the best thing you can do is just remain resilient. And there are these stories of her, of negotiations with foreign diplomats going late into the night, and everybody is exhausted. And a diplomat from the other side says something like,
you know, it's 2 a.m. Maybe we should continue and finish this up tomorrow.
And she says,
I'm doing fine. I think we can proceed.
And that persistence, right, that energy is the thing that often got negotiations across the finish line. So this ability to be persistent and tenacious, right, without being cocky or pretentious, is a key way to achieve a mutual gains outcome in negotiation. So in my own experience with Ambassador Barshefsky, I've come to see her as first, an ambitious goal setter. She knows what success looks like. Second, as a master tactician, she knows how to build coalitions. Third, as an intense and completely prepared negotiator. And fourth, as pragmatic, persistent, and tenacious. So if you want to continue the journey of learning from great negotiators, watch this next video, which is about one of my own mentors, the late, great Harvard Law School professor, Roger Fisher. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and ring the bell. I'm Bob Bordone, and thanks for watching. Okay, you want to know why Roger Fisher is great? Keep watching.